In the twilight of King David's reign, the land of Israel stood at a precipice. The mighty warrior king, once feared by his enemies and beloved by his people, now lay frail upon his bed, his body weary with age. Yet one last battle loomed, not with sword and shield, but with destiny itself. A successor had to be named. Among David's sons, one had already seized power. Adonijah, the eldest, had crowned himself king, surrounded by noblemen and warriors who had sworn fealty to him. Banquets were held, declarations made. Israel's new ruler had, it seemed, already ascended, but he was not the chosen one. A storm of whispers spread through the palace halls, reaching the ears of Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. Her heart pounded as she made her way to the chamber where the once mighty David lay, his breath shallow but his spirit still clinging to life. She knelt beside him, her voice trembling with urgency. "My lord, you swore by the Lord your God that my son Solomon would reign after you, but Adonijah has made himself king and the people follow him." A shadow flickered in David's tired eyes. The weight of prophecy, of divine promise, could not be ignored. Nathan the prophet entered behind her, his solemn nod confirming the dreadful news. The old king inhaled deeply, summoning the remnants of his strength. "Take Solomon, set him on my mule, and bring him to Gihon. There, anoint him king over Israel." The command reverberated through the palace like thunder. Soldiers leapt into action, priests gathered holy oil, and soon a great procession wound its way through the streets of Jerusalem. Trumpets blared, the city trembled with anticipation. Then came the moment. As the anointing oil touched Solomon's brow, a great cheer erupted. The earth itself seemed to quake beneath the jubilation. Solomon, son of David, was now king. The cries of the people drowned out Adonijah's feasting, and in an instant the usurper's grip on the throne crumbled. Solomon's reign had begun. But the true test of his kingship lay not in the coronation, but in what came after. That night, in the sacred silence of Gibeon, Solomon lay asleep. A celestial light pierced the darkness. The air grew heavy with divine presence. Then a voice, majestic, all-encompassing, spoke from the heavens. "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." The young king stirred, his heart pounding. Riches, power, revenge against his enemies. The choices swirled like ghosts in his mind, but deep within him he knew what he truly needed. He fell to his knees. "O Lord my God, you have made me king, but I am only a child. I do not know how to lead these people. Give me wisdom so that I may govern your people with understanding." A hush fell over the heavens. Then the voice returned, filled with approval. "Because you have asked for wisdom, and not for riches or power, I will give you wisdom like no other before or after you, and I will also bless you with wealth and honor." Solomon awoke, bathed in sweat, his chest rising and falling rapidly. But in his heart there was clarity. God had answered, and soon the world would witness the depth of his wisdom. One day the king sat upon his throne when two women were brought before him, their faces marked with desperation. In their arms, one child. One woman stepped forward, her voice raw with sorrow. "This woman and I live in the same house. She gave birth to a child, and so did I. But in the night, she rolled over her child and he died. Then she stole my son and replaced him with her own." The second woman's eyes narrowed, her tone defiant. "No, the living child is mine, and the dead one is hers." A tense silence filled the room. The courtiers held their breath. Solomon's expression remained unreadable. Then he spoke. "Bring me a sword." Gasps rippled through the hall as a guard stepped forward, a gleaming blade in hand. "Cut the child in two. Give half to one woman and half to the other." A piercing cry shattered the stillness. "No, do not harm the child. Let her have him." The second woman, however, remained unmoved. "Yes, divide him. Let neither of us have him." Solomon raised a hand. The sword did not fall. His gaze settled on the woman who had pleaded for the child's life. "Give the child to the first woman. She is his true mother." A murmur swept through the crowd, then awe. For they saw that Solomon's wisdom was not of men but of God. Under Solomon's rule, Israel flourished. Gold and silver gleamed in the streets, prosperity abounded, and the king's renown spread across distant lands. Among those who sought his wisdom was a figure of great legend, the Queen of Sheba. She arrived in splendor, her caravan heavy with gold, spices, and precious stones. She stepped forward, her eyes sharp, her voice regal. "I have heard of your wisdom, but I did not believe it until I came to see for myself. Now I know that your God has truly blessed you." Solomon inclined his head, his thoughts heavy with fulfillment. "The Lord has fulfilled his word. My father David desired to build the temple, but God chose me to complete it." And so, the grand temple of the Lord rose from the earth, a masterpiece of devotion, its golden walls reflecting the heavens. On the day of its completion, Solomon stood before the people, arms lifted to the sky. "O Lord, may your eyes always be on this temple, and may you hear the prayers of your people." A sudden wind howled through the courtyard. A great cloud descended. The glory of the Lord filled the temple. But wisdom alone does not guard the heart. As the years passed, shadows crept into Solomon's soul. Power, pleasure, wealth, none could fill the void that grew within him. He took many foreign wives, their gods whispering temptations in his ear. And slowly, the king's devotion wavered. Then the Lord's voice, once filled with promise, now rang with judgment. "Because you have turned away from me, I will tear the kingdom from your descendants. Yet, for the sake of David, I will not do it in your lifetime." Solomon, once mighty, now stood alone with the weight of regret. In his old age, he wandered his palace, lost in thought. The halls of gold, the riches beyond measure, what did they truly mean? His voice, once filled with confidence, now wavered with sorrow. "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." He clenched his fists, his gaze distant. "I built great cities, I gathered riches, I sought pleasure. But in the end, all is meaningless without God." He turned to the gathered scribes, his final words etched in eternity. "The end of the matter is this: fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." And so the great king who had been given wisdom beyond measure passed from the earth. His kingdom, as foretold, divided, yet his wisdom remained. It lives on in Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Solomon, guiding all who seek truth. For true wisdom is not merely knowledge, it is obedience to God.